Our maintenance business model in road service is a combination of in-house design and supervision, which we've traditionally done and we value. And we've, over the last number of years, done that in partnership with an external contractor, and again, we value that relationship. We have a direct labour workforce who are primarily involved in emergency response, winter service and routine maintenance. And then we have a range of term contracts with the private sector contractors for the remainder of our maintenance activities. And we've had a complete review of how this business model of ours compares with a range of others. And it brings me to another point, and that is that it's all very well doing things differently and new ways of working, but you should only do things differently and new ways of working if your existing way is broken or badly broken. So we have compared and benchmarked ourselves against MACs, against managing agent term maintenance contracts, construction management contracts, PFIs, and we've done this right across the United Kingdom where we've been able to get information. And we're still in the stage of analysing this, but the emerging findings are that our current arrangements compare favourably with the rest of the UK. And we've also been able to find out that part of the reason for that is down to cheaper material and labour costs. And interestingly, it's also down to different output standards. And that's an issue that we talked about again earlier on this morning. So very, very important to make sure that you're not over-specifying what you're required to do. And we've continued then with the theme of looking at ourselves to have a look at our structural reorganisation. We're going to be under pressure for administration budget pressures over the 4-year period. So we've looked at our organisation structures, we've looked at our divisional boundaries, and we've looked at our internal consultancy and our internal direct labour workforce. And indeed, we've looked at the relationships that we had established in the organisation between our internal client and indeed our delivery partners. And the areas that we're now focusing on to drive out improvements are obviously in terms of direct labour workforce to optimise our locations in terms of where our work is on the ground. But at a more strategic level, we're now looking at having leaner structures. We're looking at minimising the interfaces and driving out the hidden costs associated with them. We're looking at greater team working with client, contractor and consultant, more risk transfer, less what I call man-to-man marking and checking, and indeed looking at the level of design that we do for some of our smaller schemes before we actually turn these into construction. There are many, many challenges in this, as you'll understand, but one of the biggest challenges is trying to protect skills and capacity, particularly when I look at the workload changes within and beyond the budget period that I'm faced with. And I have a slide coming up just after this which will show you that. But basically what our budget outcome has shown is that in years 1 and 4 of the budget period, our allocations are reasonable. I put it no higher than that. They're certainly at a lot better level than they are in years 2 and 3. And the challenge for us is to say to ourselves, well, we've got to deliver in year 1, so we need structures and people to do that. In years 2 or 3, in the lean years, what do we do with our people? Because we've got to build back up again in year 4. Despite what the Department of Finance might think, the world does not come to an end at the end of year 4, and there will be a year 5. So what level do we need to be resourced at to actually set up ourselves to meet the delivery challenge in year 5? There are many things beyond our control that will drive what we're doing. We will look at diverting some of our resource to other areas like income generation that I just referred to, and indeed other areas in our organisation where we hadn't been resourced to the level that we probably could have been. But a big challenge to retain the capacity without carrying expensive surpluses. And obviously use of our partner consultant to bring innovation and key skills will be important to us. And the bullet point at the bottom is probably the most important point of all on this page, and that's about the importance of retaining the intelligent client in a whole range of areas. And by that I mean the ability to make informed judgments and the ability to provide high-quality professional advice to ministers, all of which leads to added value for money. And again, just without getting into the detail, the slide is just there to show you the challenges that we will face in years 2 and 3 of the budget period. Some of the initiatives that have come forward, and this is an interesting one on street lighting, where the private sector in Northern Ireland has actually come forward and put a proposal to us, which we're actively considering at the minute, and that is that they would take over our 250,000-odd street lighting stock. They would actually provide the energy for us, and obviously they would base this on LED lanterns, but that they would do this and finance this over a 30-year period. And this is based on risk sharing and savings sharing. Now, this is a completely different approach to our traditional public sector provision of such services. And those of you that work in either local authority or central government, as I do, will know that in issues like this, while they make great sense, by the time the Departments of Finance and Personnel get a look at them, reality sometimes just goes out the window. But nevertheless, we are looking at this with considerable interest. In conclusion then, Chairman, in doing things differently and new ways of working, what's absolutely critical is doing the right things. And in my view, we are much more likely to do the right things with an intelligent client. And, you know, if you go back again to earlier on this morning and all this talk about pothole repairs, and I read the technical press and I read a lot of the political comment, and, you know, there are a lot of people at political level patting themselves on the back for making so much money available at the end of the year. I think I would turn that round and say, well, was that the right thing to do? And if you took that money and allocated that money at the start of the year, how much better value for money would have been driven out had that been done? Much better value for money, in my view, to provide an appropriate allocation at the start of the year, rather than coming and dealing with potholes, which at the end of the day are just really a sign of failure. Regrettably, I'm in the same position back in Northern Ireland, where I was asked to spend £21 million on structural maintenance capital in the last 3 months of the year, which is greater than 30% of my total budget. And you can imagine the pressure that has put my organisation and indeed the industry in Northern Ireland under just to actually do. Second key point, going forward in constrained budgetary environments, it's not just about value for money. We see any number of good value for money schemes, particularly local safety schemes, coming across our desks day and daily, and you're getting rates of return of 6, 6.5, 7 and 8 and that sort of thing. We can't afford them. Affordability is the key. And this is something that in the good years, in 2005-6 on, for example, we didn't have to worry too much about. Now we certainly do. So an additional criterion of affordability. And indeed the importance of prioritisation in constrained budgetary environment. And I know it's very simple to say this. You know, obviously we look at the priorities in terms of maintenance of the network, trying to protect the value of the asset that we have, management of the network, and by that I mean the wholesale management of the network and the management of the traffic on it, and the use of intelligent transport systems. And finally, and thirdly, if there's money left over, let's develop the network and let's do it in a targeted way. For professionals, I think that makes eminent sense. The trick is trying to convince our political masters of that. And let's be perfectly honest, standing out and opening a brand new bypass of some town or village is likely to bring in much more votes than looking at a spreader going up the road, resurfacing it. Steve Norris talked about public-private collaboration earlier on, how important that is, and I don't want to go back over what he has said. The only thing that I would emphasise is one of the key points that he made, and I'm totally signed up to, and that is that there's no single size fits all. And I'll take you back to the work that we've done on our business model. Our business model may not be the best model for you, but it's certainly, in terms of what we see at the minute, the best model for us, and that's the important thing. And finally, Chairman, closing with my theme that I started with about leadership at all levels in the organisation, and about leaders being able to create a vision, being able to take that vision and turn it into a strategy, and then to communicate that strategy is absolutely critical. And I've said there that we should lead by example. And therefore, Chairman, I'm going to leave the stage now, you'll be glad to know, but I'm going to leave with a challenge to everybody in this room. And that is that you've all come here, you've all had a very good day. Those of you that are staying, like me, for the drinks reception, I suspect will have an even better day. But before you go home, you've picked up a lot of very, very good ideas. Don't just file them away. Take the best of the ideas that you've seen today and act on them in your organisation, both organisationally and individually. Doing things differently is not the easy option, but in my view, it's the only option. Thank you very much.